Okay, let's look at formatting pages. We're going to work with the rabbits page that I made earlier. So I just click on the name of that page. And here's the text that I put in the text box up at the top here. This is referred to as a WYSIWYG editor, by the way. That stands for what you see is what you get. However, there are some styling changes that are made on the front end, such as color and the size of the headings, but we'll sort of see what we're going to get as we work in the back here. You'll see there's actually a fairly complex formatting toolbar above our text area, and we are going to ignore most of these buttons. A lot of them are bad practice, and I will give you a couple of examples. Okay, so I'm going to start with the top left here. This is our bold button. It puts what's called a strong tag, meaning strongly emphasized, around the text that you select. So for this one, you need to select the specific text that you want to bold. So I just clicked and dragged across these three words, and I click the bold button, and ta-da, it's bold. I'm going to find another couple of words here that should be italicized, and this puts a tag in the code that says emphasize. So it's not as strongly emphasized as bold, but it's still emphasized. Now you may wonder why I'm telling you about the code in the background, but it's actually pretty critical because it has to do with people that are not sighted, how they're experiencing the website. They're using something called a screen reader that reads it out loud to them in many cases, and it will change the emphasis of the text depending on which of these buttons. But WordPress still uses the B and I, even though that code is no longer relevant, if you're familiar with old HTML. So anyway, now we have some bold text and we have some italicized text. You can also take some text and set it apart from the rest as a block quote. This is not something you would do very often, but if you wanted to make it clear that something was quoted, you would just click somewhere in the middle of that paragraph and click the block quote button right here. And you'll see that it's immediately styled differently. It's going to look a little different on the front end from what you get here. I've got a styling on the side where it's got a colored bar on the left-hand side, I think. But it definitely stands out as being pretty clear that it is separate from the main text. It is quoting somebody else. Now we have bulleted list and numbered list here. If you've worked in Microsoft Word, for example, you're familiar with these buttons. They're very similar to what's in Microsoft Word. And let's say I want to find a couple of items here that I can turn into a bulleted list. I'm going to take this text here and split it up into something that is a little easier to scan on the web. So we have a list of things, and I'm going to put them in separate paragraphs. I'm just hitting the return key on the Mac and the enter key on the PC. And I'm getting rid of punctuation on those items. And then I can just select them and click the button up here for a bulleted list. Now, bulleted lists are different from numbered lists in that they don't really have to be in any kind of sequence. They're just a list of stuff, like things that you're packing to go to Hawaii, for example. But if it needed to be numbered, I can click this button right here instead, the numbered list, and now it's pretty clear that they're supposed to be in a certain sequence. I wouldn't just use the numbered list for just anything. I would use it if you are indicating to the reader that this is meant to be in a particular sequence. And I can undo this by clicking the button back off. Almost any of these buttons up here are a sort of toggle. They can be toggled on and off by turning them on and off. Okay, we have some alignment of text choices here. I prefer that you just keep everything left aligned with rare exception, so I wouldn't even bother with these buttons right here. There are a couple of buttons here for creating links and for breaking links. I'll talk about those in a future tutorial, as well as creating tables and adding links to our alfresco repository. So what I want to look at now is the second bar down here, and this is for formatting our headings primarily. Everything that you enter in here first, if you're entering just plain text, is going to go in as a paragraph style. But we have some choices here between styles of headings. So a little note about heading 1 through heading 6. These are hierarchical, not sequential. And by that I mean heading 1 is the main heading for the entire page. There should only be one of those, and that's actually this one right here. This will be the one H1 on the page. And then the next heading level down would be your main subheadings on the page, and you probably will have multiple of heading 2s that they break the page up into its main subsections. When you get to something like heading 3, these will be subsections. These would be sections inside of one of the larger sections here. So you may on your page start with a heading 1 and then have a heading 2 and another heading 2, and under that you might have several heading 3s, then go back to a heading 2, etc. A lot of my students in the past have just made the mistake of going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and on down. Another mistake that people make is choosing the heading size or choosing the heading type because it's the size that they want. And this can be very confusing to the visually impaired people who are trying to navigate from heading to heading in their screen reader, and it's not coded correctly. We really should follow the convention of the next heading level is 2, and under that the next heading level is 3. Use it instead of skipping to 4 or 5 because they're the right size that you want. Okay, so I actually have several opportunities here to do heading level 2. And for heading levels, I don't have to select the text. I just can click somewhere inside of this paragraph and it will change the entire paragraph. So I've clicked inside Habitat and Range, which is my first subheading on the page. I choose heading 2. Go find another one here, Terminology. And yes, I took this text from Wikipedia. So there's my heading level 2 for Terminology. A heading level 2 for Biology. And under that I have a few subheadings. I just put these little dashes in front of each of them so I would be reminded that these are subheadings under Biology. So I'm going to get rid of that dash and change this to a heading 3. Same with Morphology, Ecology, and Sleep. And if I had some more subsections down here, I'd go back to heading level 2. I'm ready to update my page, and I don't need to scroll back up to the top. If you remember, I can just click on Update here in my black toolbar. I wait for this little semicircle to finish spinning one way and then back the other way. But now to view the page, I do have to scroll up. I'm going to find this button right here or this link that shows me the web address for this page. Right click, open link, a new tab. And now I have my rabbits page. I have some of the text italicized. Remember, that's emphasized in the code. And this is bolded or strongly emphasized. This is my block quote. And here's my heading level 2. A bulleted list. Another heading 2. Another heading 2. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 heading level 3s. And what it tells the user is that these fall under Biology because they're smaller and they're repeated, and you get a sense of how that page is organized, and that Biology, Terminology, and Habitat and Range are similar in their level of heading. Please avoid the following. Changing the font size is discouraged because our style sheet determines what size the font should be. Please avoid changing text color for a similar reason. We want consistency throughout our site, so we want gray text that's supposed to be gray to stay gray, and links to stay the color that they're supposed to be, etc. There's also some interesting little buttons in here. We don't really have a use for any of them. This one I would like to point out that if you do have a Word document that somebody sent you and you want to just copy from it but strip out all of the formatting like I recommended earlier so that you can reformat it in WordPress without introducing new weird code that you're not aware is there, you can turn on this button right here. You'll be in plain text mode and you can paste in our text box and it will be stripped of links and heading styles and color and all kinds of things like that. So this is a really useful thing. And I can just close this and that will stay on. You can see the outline around it. With rare exception, I wouldn't use anything down here in this third bar either. I've pretty much covered all the things that you would want to use for formatting your text on one of our Sacramento City College web pages.